The Switch 2 is selling more than I think anyone ever expected it to. In fact, it's even outselling what Nintendo predicted themselves. So in this video, I'm going to talk about it. We're going to talk about launch numbers, what it all means, games, and all that fun stuff. We know you love it. So Nintendo just had a quarterly meeting with investors. This is what they do quarterly. We always get some sort of idea of how the Nintendo Switch is doing, the Switch 1 and the Switch 2, both on how they're doing, how sales are going, any game sales, all the units that are being sold everywhere. And they just give us more detail on all of that stuff. So we have exact numbers that they can give investors so that these investors can know what they're investing into. That's essentially what this is. And that's how we know it. And this is all public information. They want people to be investing into the company. So this is who it's for, and based on that, we can kind of tell how the Switch 2 is doing by itself. We can kind of just see everything Nintendo is cooking, and inside of these quarterly meetings, Nintendo also gives us kind of like the future of what the Switch 2 is going to bring and how they're going to continue to sell to consumers and all that stuff. So I wanted to just talk about the fact that the Switch 2 has officially sold over 10 million units. That is insane. That is so good. In the first 4 months too. Yeah, Nintendo confirmed it. That's faster than the original Switch, faster than the PS4. Like, this is by far the best selling console that has ever come to the market, ever. In fact, it's selling more than Nintendo ever expected because they changed their goal. They thought that by the end of the year, they'd sell like 4 million units, and now they're forecasting 19 million units. Or sorry, not by the end of the year, but by the end of the fiscal year, which would be June or something like that, around that. So let's break down these sales and get started. So on September 30th, they announced that yes, they sold officially 10.36 million units worldwide. And in the first quarter alone, it was 5 million units. So let's keep in mind that this console released in June, on June 5th, 2025, and that's only 4 months of data. Only 4 months. And this guy sells over 5 million units. That's insane. And kind of like I said, Nintendo originally predicted 15 million units for the fiscal year, and now they raised it to 19 million. And they didn't just give us the details of the console, but they also told us about games. So along with the console units, they just tell us how many games were sold out of all those. And drum roll please, that's right, over 20 million games were sold for the console, both digital and physical. And 8.1 million were bundled alongside the hardware, which means that most people, about 80% of people, bought the Nintendo Switch to bundle with Mario Kart or now even Pokemon. I guess not even, no, this would just be Mario Kart because Pokemon wasn't out by September 30th when this was made. And based on the amount of games sold, that's an attach rate of almost 2 games per console already, which is not bad for a new system. I definitely inflated those numbers quite a bit. I have so many Switch 2 games, it's not even funny. But bundling games clearly worked, and it's part of why these numbers look so big this early on, I think. And just so that everybody remembers, the Wii U alone sold 13 million units, which means that in the span of almost 4 months, the Switch 2 has almost sold as many units as the Wii U did. Like, that is just crazy. And I think the Wii U sold 100 million games total, and we're at 20 million games. So we got quite a bit of catching up to do on the Switch 2 games. But still, I mean, that's a pretty big difference. And the fact that the Wii U had like 4 or 5 years to cook, and the Switch 2 hasn't even been out for 6 months, like, that's just, I'm gonna say it over and over again, it's just wild. Nintendo usually plays pretty conservative with their forecasts. Like, if they think 5 million units are good, then the chances are they're going to hit that. So the fact that they raised their expectations this year says actually quite a lot. They suspect it's going to be 19 million units from 15 million. Like, that's a big jump. So let's do some comparisons here, and I'll give you some context. The original Switch took roughly 7 months to hit that same 10 million plus milestone. Now, to be fair to Nintendo, they did not think that the Switch was going to be as popular as it was. I think they got burnt from the Wii U. The fact that the Wii U sold so horribly and, was a huge loss for the company. They didn't actually produce that many Switch 1s because they didn't know how well the console was going to sell. They thought maybe this this was a dead market. Maybe they were going to give up, so they didn't produce as many, not nearly as many as the Switch 2. And I think the Switch 2 sold so well because of the amount of Switch 2s you can go buy. Like right now, you can go to a store and most likely you can find a Switch 2 on the shelf if you just walk in, which for most video game consoles in the first year even, it's pretty difficult to do, especially when the PS5 and the Xbox came out. There was a huge shortage, which is why it's also pacing ahead of the PS5's early launch period. And again, the PS5 and the Xbox both had major hardware shortages with all the chips and the random crap, but the Switch 2 is just ready to go. But going back to the Switch 1 for a second, the fact that it took them 6 million, or the fact that it took them 7 months to hit the same 10 million, just shows you how many people were so ready for a Switch 2. At this rate, maybe not, I'm sure it'll slow down, but at this rate, the Switch 2 might be Nintendo's fastest selling console ever. Or I guess I should say the most selling console ever if this momentum keeps up. You can just kind of feel how much pent-up demand there was after the original Switch's 8-year run. So what's fueling the success? What is it? Because we also have to remember, like, there's no major 3D Mario release. I mean, I guess there technically was if you consider Donkey Kong to be there. And Mario Kart World kind of counts, but that was more of a... Mario Kart has always been a game that just kind of slowly gets sales. And of course, the new Pokemon game and the new Hyrule Warriors game don't count for this meeting, so I'm not technically counting that. But a bunch of third-party ports came out as well. So yeah, I think the launch lineup is really good, and Nintendo is doing very well at keeping up games releasing with Nintendo Switch 2 editions and of course first-party games. There's a lot of people saying that there's no Switch 2 games that are released. Well, also, come on, the console's only been out for 4 months and we already have a huge list of games releasing. I mean, this year alone we got Metroid Prime 4 still, Hyrule Warriors, Kirby Air Riders, 3 very big games just this year, and already next year we know that we're getting Tomodachi Life, that new Yoshi game, more Switch 2 editions like with Super Mario Wonder. There are just so many things that Nintendo is doing, and they are releasing more games than any other game publisher or big, the big three, the PlayStation and Xbox. Nintendo is continuously pumping out games, which Sony and Xbox just don't do. So no wonder Nintendo is doing so well. But I also think that Nintendo bundling in their popular games is also why the console is selling so well. Like, there's only 2 games that have been in bundles, like Mario Kart World. That was obviously a big one. And Pokemon Legends EA, that's another big one. And of course, you're actually saving a bit of money on the game, especially Mario Kart World. You save like $30 on that game or something like that if you buy the bundle, which is why I would recommend everyone to buy the bundle. It's way better getting a $50 game than an $80 game, especially for what Mario Kart World is offering right now. So yeah, of course, the games are fueling the success. All that being said, the games are what is fueling the success. I think Phil Spencer, the guy from Xbox, the main guy that looks over the Xbox, he's like, games don't fuel success or something like that. He said that the games aren't as important, that games won't sell consoles. Clearly, he's wrong. I'm not sure why he said that. I don't even remember where he said that, but I know that he said that at some point. He's wrong, obviously. So what does this mean for the future? What does this mean? First of all, we have to remember that the Switch 2 sold this without the Christmas hype. Like, just take that in. For every single console, always the holiday season is the best season out of them all. It's the best quarter. The last 3 months of the year go absolutely insane with, Black Friday sales. Then, of course, you got Boxing Day, and then just everyone buying their kids stuff for Christmas or, other people stuff for Christmas. So the fact that we're getting this many sales without a holiday season is very impressive. And I also think that that's why Nintendo put up their projected unit sales to 19 million. It just makes sense. So this is going to be good. We haven't even got a Christmas yet, and the sales are this good. And the holiday sales are just going to make it even better, especially with this new hyped up Kirby game that's releasing. You got another Zelda game in there with Hyrule Warriors. People who already have a Switch 2 are going to get games for Christmas. People are going to get Switch 2s for Christmas, alongside with some other games. And yeah, so a holiday season's coming up. It's going to get a little slower in January, February, and March, I'm sure. But it seems that Nintendo is going to still be releasing games in that time period from what we know so far. I mean, we already have Mario Tennis for February and the Switch 2 edition of Animal Crossing Crossing in January. So Nintendo is already saying, hey, we got you covered for those who are getting Switch 2s for Christmas. Now, the stock coming up on the Christmas season might be a little bit lower because people are buying them. Probably around mid-November or whenever Black Friday is. It's gonna be a little bit intense, but I do think that they are going to hit the 19 million units by March, which is what they expect to do. So I guess my big concern now is like, okay, the sales are massive now, but can Nintendo keep up after the early adopters? You know, can they keep doing this? I think they can. And they've also said that the Switch 1 is still selling good enough that they're just continuing to make Switch 1s as well. They're saying we're gonna sell Switch 1s until people stop buying them. So they're just gonna keep getting sales from Switch 1 and Switch 2. At this point, I don't know why you would get a Switch 1, especially after they increase the price, at least here in Canada. And I also have trust that Nintendo will continue to give us games on a monthly basis. They've always been good with giving us monthly games, sometimes even twice a month if you include Nintendo Switch 2 editions. Like, I just don't see a future that Nintendo just stops releasing games once a month. At least I hope. Hope I can't see that. There are some odd months here and there. Like in September this year, there wasn't like really anything that I can think of that was super good. Maybe a Switch 2 edition in there somewhere, but yeah, that was kind of odd that they just kind of, you know, missed September. Maybe they considered Hollow Knight to be the big September game, but still. Anyways, whatever. That doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure that they'll keep up with it. I'm not concerned at this point, but I can see the concern, especially looking at, you know, what PlayStation's doing. I think the only people who should be concerned are maybe the Switch 1 users. We're clearly getting less and less games for Switch 1. There were games that Nintendo promised for Switch 1 users many years ago, like Metroid Prime 4. I truly believe that they wouldn't have put Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch 1 if they hadn't announced that it was coming to the Switch 1 like 8 years ago or something silly. Same with Pokemon as well. And we do know that there are going to be some Switch 1s in the future, but right now I think we only have 2 more after Metroid, which is Tomodachi Life and the new Rhythm Heaven game, but those really aren't very technical to the point where they couldn't run on the Switch, so those make sense. And if people are still buying the Switch, yeah, you can throw them a couple pieces of bread, you know what I mean? Inside this review, or inside of this, you know, inside this whole fiscal year released thing, they also told us other ways that they're keeping Nintendo fans engaged with apps and movies, and I'll talk about that in a future video. But yeah, I just find it really crazy that Nintendo sold over 10 million units. That's impressive. So good job, Nintendo. I hope you continue to give us some epic games. You are doing it better than any other game company at this point. So all right, thanks for listening. Like and subscribe, do that, all that stuff. All right, I'll see you in the next one. See you later.